Hermes, the Messenger and Trickster. The baby thief. In a cave on Mount Selene, a child was born who would change the dynamic of Olympus forever. His mother was the shy nymph Maya, and his father was Zeus. This child was Hermes. Unlike other gods who took days or years to mature, Hermes was born precocious. By noon, on the very day of his birth, he grew bored of his cradle. He slipped out of the cave, looking for adventure. His first act was one of invention. He found a turtle outside the cave. Instead of playing with it, he killed it, scooped out the insides, and stretched strings made of sheep gut across the shell. In doing so, he invented the first musical instrument, the lyre. But music wasn't enough. He was hungry for meat. He traveled to Pieria, where the cattle of his half-brother Apollo were grazing. Hermes, just a few hours old, stole 50 of the finest cows. To hide his tracks, he came up with a genius plan. He drove the cattle backwards, so their hoofprints looked like they were walking towards the pasture, not away from it. He also wove giant sandals from branches to disguise his own footprints. After hiding the cows and sacrificing 2 of them to the gods, including himself cheekily, he snuck back into his crib, wrapped himself in swaddling clothes, and pretended to be a helpless baby. When Apollo found him, he was furious. He dragged the infant Hermes to Mount Olympus to be judged by Zeus. "This baby stole my cows!" Apollo shouted. Hermes widened his eyes innocently and said, "I was born yesterday. I don't even know what a cow is." Zeus laughed out loud at his son's audacity, but ordered him to return the cattle. Hermes did, but he also played his lyre for Apollo. Apollo was so enchanted by the music that he let Hermes keep the cows in exchange for the instrument. Thus Hermes became the god of herdsmen, and Apollo became the god of music. The messenger of the gods. Hermes earned his place on Olympus not by power, but by utility. He was faster than the wind, thanks to his winged sandals, talaria. He wore a winged traveler's cap, petasus, and carried a golden staff entwined with snakes, known as the Odysseus. Zeus saw his potential and appointed him the official messenger of the gods. His role was crucial. He delivered Zeus's commands to other gods and mortals. He was the god of boundaries and transitions. Wherever there was a crossing, a doorway, a crossroads, a border, Hermes was there. He became the patron of travelers, merchants, and thieves, because to the Greeks, commerce and theft were 2 sides of the same coin. Both involved the transfer of goods and requiring cleverness. If you were a traveler praying for a safe journey, you prayed to Hermes. If you were a merchant trying to make a profit, you prayed to Hermes too. And if you were a pickpocket trying not to get caught, you whispered a prayer to Hermes.
The Psychopomp. Hermes had another duty, darker and more solemn than delivering messages. He was the Psychopomp, the conductor of souls. When a mortal died, their soul did not find its way to the underworld automatically. They needed a guide. Hermes was the only Olympian, besides Hades and Persephone, who could freely enter and leave the realm of the dead without consequence. He would gently lead the shades of the departed down to the banks of the river Styx, where Charon the ferryman waited. He was the bridge between life and death. This role gave him a unique perspective. He saw the joy of the living and the sorrow of the dead. He was respected in the shiny halls of Olympus and the gloomy palace of Hades equally. He was the ultimate diplomat, comfortable in any environment. The slayer of Argus. Hermes was not a warrior like Ares, but he was dangerous in his own way. His greatest kill was not won with brute force, but with boredom. As we learned in Hermes episode, Zeus's lover Io was turned into a cow and guarded by Argus Panoptes, the hundred-eyed giant. Argus never slept fully. Some eyes were always open. Zeus commanded Hermes to free Io. Hermes couldn't fight Argus directly. The giant was too strong. So, disguised as a shepherd, Hermes sat beside the giant and began to play his reed pipes. The music was soothing. Then Hermes began to tell stories. He told long, winding, monotonous stories that went nowhere. He droned on and on. Slowly, one by one, the eyes of Argus began to close. 50 eyes, 70 eyes, 90 eyes. Finally, the boring stories worked. All 100 eyes shut in deep sleep. In a flash, Hermes drew his sword and struck, cutting off the giant's head, and freed Io, and earned the title Argeiphontes, Slayer of Argus. It was a victory of patience and cunning over raw physical power. The helper of heroes. Hermes was the most helpful of the gods to humanity. While other gods often hindered heroes, Hermes almost always appeared to give them a critical edge. Odysseus. When the sorceress Circe turned Odysseus's men into pigs, Hermes appeared. He gave Odysseus a magical herb called moly to protect him from her magic, and told him exactly how to subdue the witch. Perseus. When Perseus needed to kill Medusa, Hermes loaned him his own winged sandals, allowing the hero to fly, and guided him to the nymphs of the west to get the other weapons he needed. Priam. In the tragic end of the Trojan War, Priam of Troy safely guided King Priam of Troy through the enemy Greek lines so he could beg Achilles for the body of his son, Hector. Hermes represents the idea that wit is better than strength. He is the trickster archetype found in almost every culture. He breaks the rules, he lies, he steals, but he also invents, helps, and connects people. He reminds us that the world is not static. It is always moving, changing, and trading. And in that constant motion, Hermes is king.